Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are the UX design people. In this channel, we share tips, inspirations, ideas, principles, and everything related to UX design. My name is Blessing, your channel host, and in this episode, we are going to be talking about affordances and signifiers. In this video, we are going to cover the meaning of affordances, the meaning of signifiers, practical applications of signifiers, the relationship between signifiers and affordances, and how to correctly use them in your designs. You might be wondering what affordances and signifiers are, and you might have even heard of it, like, okay, what are these buzzwords that designers keep saying? What are affordances? What are signifiers? But don't worry, at the end of this video, you'll be able to correctly explain what signifiers mean, what affordances mean, and you'll be able to apply them in your own designs. If you do enjoy my content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share to your friends, especially those in UX design. Thank you very much for subscribing to my channel. And if you have not done so, please do, and turn on your notifications so that you know immediately when my content drops. Welcome back. Let me quickly show you something. You see this black microphone on my chest? I got it about 2 months ago and it has been working well. But then I'm just going to show us something. So this is the box, this is the microphone. I'm going to pretend like it's new and we'll try to unbox it. So we see this microphone. Obviously, I know that it can be opened. Boxes come in different styles, and for this one, it comes in this unique style that you can just, you see this handle over here, you can just drag something out, right? You can drag it out and then you see what's inside. It's different from other boxes that you have to open from the top or open from the side. It's different from the iPhone box that you open, like you just like pull from the top like this. So this handle is saying something, and it's part of what we want to do today. This handle is saying that, like, from just looking at it, you can see that it shows that you can grab it, right, and pull it. This is basically what affordances and signifiers mean. When people buy your product, when people interact with your product, especially new users, when they come to your product and they are using it for the first time, whether physical products like this microphone or mobile apps and other digital products, they try to find out how exactly it works. They want to know what's possible. What can I do? You know, when you want to buy something, when you go to the market and you see a new device, you just look around. Okay, what can I do? Like this one, when I got it, I saw, okay, for Type-C for iPhone. It means that I can actually use this microphone with an iPhone, which I'm currently doing. Then I can use it for a phone that has a Type-C slot, like Samsung devices, even iPhone 15, right? It has the Type-C slot. So these things that are written on the pack, you don't necessarily have to start using it until you know that this is what is possible. So when people try to use your product, they are looking for clues. They are looking for small indicators that will just tell them this is what is possible with your product and this is what is not possible. This is what I can do with this product. This is what I cannot do. Take, for example, Piggyverse. You know Piggyverse, I don't know if you know it, but it's a savings platform. You can use it to save and invest, right? So if you sign up to Piggyverse, if you're a new user and you're just hearing Piggyverse like for the first time, if you go through their websites, you are looking for what is possible and what is not possible. Why are you doing that? You want to see if this product meets your needs, right? If you want to save, let's say you're just looking for where to buy cryptocurrency and all that, and you come across Piggyverse, obviously by the time you go through the website or you even download the app and you don't see anything like cryptocurrency on it, you're just going to discard it because it's not meeting your need at that very time, right? So when people go through your product, they are looking for what is possible. It's called discoverability. They are trying to discover what's possible and what's not possible. Let me just put this aside. Affordances and signifiers are important concepts, crucial concepts in design that significantly impact how users engage with our products. I mean digital products. Like I said earlier, when users interact with your product, they try to find out what it can do and what it cannot do, right? Another thing users try to do is that they try to find out how this product is supposed to be used. Okay, so it's not just enough knowing what something can do and what something cannot do. It's also important to know how the product is supposed to be used. This is where affordances and signifiers come in. Simply put, affordances are relationships. According to Don Norman, he wrote The Design of Everyday Things. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's a very good book. You should read it. So affordances are relationships between an object and the user interacting with that object. Okay, let me break it down. Affordances, like relationships, we all know what relationships are, right? Connections, interactions, engagement. John Norman explained affordances as interactions, that is, relationships between an object. Let's say this mic is back again. So this mic and me that I'm engaging with the mic. So basically, affordance is not a property that belongs to just this mic. Okay, it's not that, oh, this mic has the affordance to be used, or to be used to what's it called, to take in, to amplify audio, because that's what the mic is used for, right? To amplify my audio. So that is not the affordance. Like, common examples, before we even go into the whole differentiation, just know that affordances refer to possibilities. Okay, possibilities that, like, what's going to be possible between me and this mic? What are the possible ways in which I can interact with this mic? Affordance is not something belonging to this mic alone. No, it's just the relationship between the person using the mic and the mic. The person using the mic and the properties of the mic itself. So this mic has some properties. That is, it can be plugged into an iPhone, it can be plugged into a computer. I've used it with my computer before. So you can do many things with the mic, but if I don't have a computer, then that affordance is not there. So you can just say that I cannot, like, this mic, for somebody that has no computer, that affordance is out of it. So the microphone cannot afford to be plugged into the computer because the person simply doesn't have a computer. So you just need to look at it as a relationship. So it goes both ways. The microphone has its own properties and I have my own properties. Affordance means the relationship between what you can do and how I can exploit what it can do. So it's just like listing all the possibilities that can exist between us. Because I have a phone that is compatible with the mic, then that affordance is there. That is, this object can afford to work with my phone. And because I have a computer that is also compatible, then this object can also afford to work with that computer. It's as simple as that. It's just examining what's possible. Other examples are, a button can afford to be clicked. If you see a push button, it can afford to be pushed or pressed. Do you understand? So these are just possibilities. And you should know that because it's a two-way thing now, it's not just the object saying, okay, I can afford to do this, I can afford to do that. If somebody, like if you have a book now, you can say a book can afford to be read, right? True, it can afford to be read, but only to those who can read it normally. Don't forget that we have people with different abilities. There are people with dyslexia. There are people that are blind, different categories like that. So that book does not contain a generalized affordance that, oh, I can be read by everybody. No. So that's how you just need to look at it. There is a two-way thing. It's about the person interacting with the product and the abilities of the product itself. The same thing goes for physical products. You know, back then we used to have these TV boxes, like your normal television sets, with buttons on it, buttons on the side. You know, you can just, if you don't have a remote control, you can just go to the TV and press it, you know, volume up, or you change the channel right on the TV itself. You just see the set of buttons like that. But these days, do you have buttons on TV? No, you don't. You have like a wider screen and literally no button. So if your remote control is lost and you don't have like this smart this smart app compatibility with your mobile phone, you are probably not going to be able to turn on your TV. So it means that those TVs from back then with those buttons, they have the affordance to be used like that. But these days, TVs don't have the affordance to be used except they have the remote control. Do you understand? So back then, the TVs with the physical buttons that are on the TV, they have a slightly different affordance than what we have today. Today, it's completely reliant on the remote control or a smart app on your mobile phone to control the television. Okay, that's enough examples. What I want you to know is that first, affordances are relative. That is, you don't have the same affordance across all users. Users interact with objects in different ways. So that's number one, affordances are relative. Number two, affordances are not always seen, like they are not always visible or obvious or tangible. Do you understand? So sometimes affordances are implicit. You just know that this thing is possible. For example, if you go to an art gallery, you see art on the wall and things like that. You don't really need instructions to tell you, oh, this art is meant to be appreciated. If they want you to buy any of the art, they will just put a price tag on it, and that is actually what we call the signifier. We are going to talk about that soon, but let's keep talking about affordances. I'm almost done. I said, what did I say first? I said affordances are relative, right? The second one, affordances are not always like visible. You don't necessarily have to see something to know that, oh yes, that's an affordance. Affordances can be implicit or explicit. So implicit ones are the ones that are just innate. You just know that this is possible. And I made mention of the art gallery. What I'm trying to say is that affordances exist, even though they are not visible. But for designers, it's very important for you to know that it is better to make your affordances perceivable, discoverable. And if it is not discoverable, then you need to add a signifier so that you don't have to make your users think. That's something that you also need to know. I need to really emphasize this. Don't make your users think that what is it supposed to do. So that means the affordance is not discoverable. For better user experience, it's good to make your affordances discoverable. That is, people should know what is possible with your product and what is not possible. Okay? And by the time you see that these affordance, maybe you are testing or you just realize that somebody has issues with this because they didn't know that this was possible, that means you need to add something to make it discoverable, and that is called a signifier. It's very important to know this because it's good for you as a designer to do the design thinking so that your users don't have to think. Okay? Do the design thinking so your users don't have to think. You don't want to design products and push it to users and then they now start thinking about it. You are giving them a lot of things to think about. They are going to get frustrated. So make it very obvious. Like, I'm not saying you should, make the logo bigger or something. I mean, that's a joke, but you get what I'm saying. Don't inflate everything. Don't make your designs bloated because you just want people to see it. And don't clutter because you want people to see your affordances, in quotes. Just make sure that if you can't easily discover the affordance, then you need to put a signifier. Let me give just one example of this. Naturally, mobile phones have the ability to make calls, to receive calls, right? You can use your mobile phone to receive an incoming call. Okay, to go into the store, you buy your mobile phone, you do the unboxing, and you start using the phone. How do you know when your call is incoming? Like when you receive your call, something has to tell you that a call is incoming. That's a signifier. So there is the affordance there that, okay, I can make calls, I can receive calls. If a call is incoming and the phone doesn't vibrate, the phone doesn't make any sound, it's not even displaying something on the face, you won't know when calls are incoming except you hear a sound or you feel some vibration in your pocket. So that's basically what I'm trying to say. So when you have affordances, you know that, okay, naturally we know that this phone is able to receive calls, but you need to also put a signifier to let the user know when exactly the call is incoming. And apart from that signifier also needs to be specific, because by the time the call is incoming, you have options. You have an option. It's not a must that you receive all the calls that all the calls that are incoming. You have the option of rejecting some. So by the time you see it, you have your signifier will now tell you, do you want to accept this call or reject it? And you know that on iPhone, it shows how to receive the call. There's this kind of dragging motion that is going to tell you, okay, drag it to receive the call. The green one is just going to show you that kind of, I don't know if it's iPhone or Samsung. but then you will just see the mimicked motion of how to receive the call. So it's signifying to you that you should drag it. That's basically what it means. So basically, if your affordance is not visible or discoverable, it's recommended for you to add a signifier so that users can be guided on how to correctly use your products. Let's quickly move to signifiers. I've explained that affordances tell you what the object can afford, right? That is, what actions are possible. Now, signifiers tell you how and where those actions should take place. For example, you downloaded a savings app like Piggyvest and you already see that, okay, I can use this platform to save, but you go into it and then you start to wonder, how exactly does this thing work? How do I save? You start to see different buttons and things like that. These are signifiers. They are telling you that, okay, you can click me and you can do this when you click me. You can click this particular spot to save. You can click this particular spot to view your earnings. You can click this particular spot to withdraw. Okay, these are signifiers because already when you see a button, you know that this button can be clicked. That's an affordance. You know that, okay, with this shape, I think I can interact with this button. You see the plus icon, you'll be like, okay, this is to create something new. Everywhere you see a plus icon and it's like in this circular block or something like that, you just know that this button is telling me I can create something new, right? So that's basically what signifiers are. Signifiers tell you how and where the action should take place. So you just see your mobile screen, you know, when you download the app and the savings app, you see all the buttons. Now, with the labels on the buttons, you know exactly what each button does. Okay, that's signifying it to you that okay, this button is different from this one because the text here says withdraw, the text here says top up or add money to your wallet or something like that. I don't know if you're already like seeing the relationship between affordances and signifiers with my explanation. So I've explained all this, and if you are trying to piece all the information together, you're going to see that both of them actually work together. Okay, they work together. Affordances like invite people to interact, that okay, I'm available, you can interact with me, right? But signifiers are saying, okay, affordances have invited you, but now let me show you how to interact with me. You can interact with me this way. You can long press, you can click, you can drag like a slider. Okay, different ways of interacting. Those are signifier jobs. Okay, now it's very important for you to know that signifiers are actually more important than affordances. I'll tell you why now. When affordances and signifiers work together, and they always must work together, when they work together, they create very good user experience, because affordances will show that something is possible, but without a signifier, you will not know how to interact with it. You already know that you can save on this app, but if you don't know, if you don't have all those clear labels on the buttons and things like that, you won't really know which one to press to save money, which one to press to withdraw money. Don't get me wrong, if you remember correctly, I said that affordances must be made discoverable. That is, if your affordance is there but people cannot see it, then you should use a signifier. If you're already seeing it, that I can open this box or I can interact with this thing, and it's already telling you how to interact with it, then that's just it. Affordances and signifiers are already present there. So you can't do one without the other. If signifiers are absent from your product, it's not going to work. People are not going to know how to interact with it, because even the smallest things, you just seem, oh, am I really adding signifiers? Like a normal button, once you put get started in a button, that's a signifier, because you are inviting people to get started using your button. Do you understand? So it's really as simple as that. They work together. You can't do one without the other. I have here that affordances and signifiers don't enhance user interfaces. They are actually not meant to improve your user interface or to make it finer or things like that, but they are fundamental to whether an interface exists for a user. Like the existence of that interface alone is an affordance or a signifier. That is what we're trying to say. Whether it performs a function or whether it helps users navigate or operate their tasks. Okay, so basically these are the things that I'm trying to say. Affordances and signifiers should be essential. They are essential. They are fundamental to your designs. So you just need to know how to correctly place them. You can just say affordances invite people to the action, or they announce the action, while signifiers clarify the action. That's simply what affordances and signifiers do. Now that you know the relationship between affordances and signifiers, let's go into the practical applications of signifiers. Okay, I think I forgot to mention it, that signifiers can be in form of anything. It can be in form of text, it can be in form of icons, color, spacing. You can use anything as a signifier. Signifiers can come in form of text, your labels, your captions, by clearly labeling buttons, form fields, and other interactive elements. You can see on my screen here, you have your labels and captions. You see that the form over here, you have your placeholder, you have your submit button with the send message label. So you know what you are doing when you are clicking the button. When you hover on something and it provides more information about that thing that you hover on, that's basically it. You use text to describe it. So it's basically telling you, signifying more information. Then the next one we have here is error messages. You can see that the text there is not just dummy text. It's not all these for text that are not human readable. You see that there's network error, and it's even giving you instructions. Please check your internet connection. You can see why it's very important for you to give clear and concise error messages to users. Give them messages that are readable, that they will understand. Don't just put error 404 or put some jargon, some technical jargon that the user will not be able to interpret. Okay, the second one I have here is sound. Under sound, we have system sounds and voice commands. System sounds are basically audio cues that are used to indicate actions, like confirmation sound when the button is clicked, or when your ride arrives, when your Uber arrives, there's this sound that it gives. When you have a call, your ringtone, a warning sound for errors. System sounds are just, auditory outputs. They just tell you, okay, an action has taken place, or an action is about to take place. Apart from digital products, your normal physical products, they also produce system sound. Your wall clock, there's this tick tock that you hear when your clock. I have one in my background right now. If you listen very well, you are going to hear it. But then your alarm clock in the morning, if you have all these what's it called, retro alarm clocks that you have to slam on the head when it's making a lot of noise at 5 a.m. You know that alarm or that sound is telling you something, right? It's signifying something. The second one we're talking about is voice commands. The voice commands, we've talked about the audio output. That's the first one, system sounds. Now, voice command is like audio input. You are telling the device to do something. Especially in this age that you have, a lot of AI assistants. You have Alexa, you have Siri, you have different assistants, and you use your voice to activate them, and they just respond to those verbal cues. Now you might be wondering, how are voice commands a signifier? They are signifiers because by the time you are setting up the voice command settings, there's usually something that they will tell you to trigger the action. To activate Siri, now you have to say something. I don't want to say it so that my phone does not disturb me. Let's say it's Alexa. You just call Alexa. There's a way you call Alexa so that Alexa will know that okay, somebody is trying to grab my attention. You just know that there are inputs that respond to some specific verbal cues. The next one I have is texture. Texture is quite straightforward. Texture is just like tactile perception, okay? And this one it will not really apply to digital products. If you look at your mobile phone, you look at this side as shown on my screen here, you will see that you have some buttons that are raised. Okay, when you see those buttons that are raised, you know that this is different from the flat surface. You can press this in. Then the one that, that mute button that you can just like switch up and down, that one is kind of different. You can't press it in. It's not something you press. It's different from the other buttons because this one you have to slide it up or down to mute and unmute your iPhone. you will see that the textures of the buttons are different. So the two buttons, the volume buttons, they have the same texture, while the other one has a different texture, and the size is even different. Okay, and the way it even works is different. And you can see that that's another signifier. It's like a signifier inside the signifier, because this one, the shape is different, the way it is positioned, the way it is designed. You can see that it's not to press. I'm talking to the mute one now, the mute button. The way it is designed is showing that you have to actually slide it down or slide it up. It's not something that you press like the normal volume control. The next one I have here is lighting. And I don't know if you've noticed some websites. Let's say you go there for the first time and you're trying to do something, but they focus your attention on one part of the website, like a button. They just highlight it. They make the other parts of the website or the other parts of the screen dark, like they dim it. They reduce the lighting, okay? Then they increase the lighting, or they highlight the button or the specific area they want your attention to be focused. So lighting can be used in different ways. You can use the highlighted buttons, like I said earlier. If you look at my screen here, you can see that we are using color or brightness to draw attention to this specific button. The rest of the page is darker. You can see that the button shows, like it pops. Then the second one you can see here is the disabled button. So we dim the inactive element to prevent accidental clicks. These are different ways you can use signifiers in form of lighting. Now let's go to color. This one is pretty self-explanatory. If you look closely at my screen, you're going to see different colors here. The first one, we have primary and secondary colors. You can use primary and secondary colors to differentiate or to signify that something is happening or something is important, to just communicate with your user that something is going on here, like an action is possible, and that you can interact with that element in a particular way. Here you have sign in and register. You see that with the way the colors are used here, you can see that the register looks more prominent and it looks more important than the sign in button. Okay, then if you look to the right, you see color coding. Color coding can also be used. We've associated some colors to some moods or some emotions. Okay, we know that green is for success states or positive states, and when you take an action, when the user takes an action, you want to give them that feedback. Okay, you can use colors like green to give them a positive feedback, and you can use colors like red to indicate a negative feedback, like network error, like the one I'm showing on my screen here. I think that's pretty simple. It's self-explanatory. Let's go to symbols. Symbols are pretty simple as well. They are just like visual representation of elements, of statuses, just visual indicators. You have icons, you have emoji. Icons are basically visual representation of objects or actions. Like if you want to open something, this arrow, you have different arrows, right? Like arrow up, arrow right, arrow down, arrow left. Then there's this one that goes like upright. Okay, it goes up and then it goes right. So when you see that beside the text link, it's kind of, it looks like a navigation, like it's taking you somewhere, especially opening that address in another tab, opening that web page in another tab. So if you see that arrow and it's looking like, oh, it's going somewhere, like an external link, exactly, that's like what it means. You just need to know that icons are like visual representation of actions or objects. If you see an icon of a stick figure, just the portrait of a stick figure, you just know that, okay, maybe they are referring to the user. Just different icons. You see the heart shape, that, okay, this is like or love or something like that. So basically, that icons have meanings, okay, and you can use icons to signify possibility. You can use icons to signify direction, navigation, different things. Emoji are just, is it emoji or emojis? Actually, it's emoji. I don't know if emojis is correct, okay? I just know that the last time I checked, the plural of emoji is emoji. So I'm just going to stick with that, okay? So emoji are like little images that convey, emotional, convey emotions. Let's just leave it at that, okay? They convey some feelings. Then the last one we want to look at is proximity. Proximity is pretty much what you already know, closeness. You are using closeness to signify something. So when you group things together, if you check my screen, you will see some elements that are grouped together. This is a screenshot taken from Canva. The elements that work together are put together. Like if you look at this blue side, you see design elements, text, brand, uploads, draw, projects, and the likes. You see that all of these, they work in the same way. When you click on them, they behave exactly the same. Then if you look at that of the one under the search bar, you see frame, music, arrow, line. These are just like search terms that you can use. You can click on them and it will bring a new set of search results. Then recently used is a category, audio is a category, videos is a category. So basically these are just ways of grouping elements together, especially elements that are related. The next one is using spacing, color, size to depict visual hierarchy. We are trying to say something is more important than something. Okay, usually people look at big things as what is really important. If you look at this page now on my screen, you will see join the wait list. Like it's bigger, the text here is bigger than frequently asked questions. Okay, you know that the purpose of this page is for people to join the wait list. You can also see the space around them, around the text, around the buttons and the likes. You will see that the related elements are also grouped together. So it's just showing visual hierarchy. The arrangement of the page, the layout, you can just see that everything works together and the important things are given more emphasis than the less important things. Lastly, let's just look at important things to note when using signifiers and affordances. The first one is clarity. You need to be clear and concise when you are applying signifiers, when you are trying to improve your user experience. You ensure that your signifiers are clear and unambiguous. You see the example I said earlier, that if you see a plus icon inside a round block like this, you know that it's like you want to create something new. So if you see it beside a folder, if you see it beside an amount, it's like you want to add something. Everybody knows that it wants to, like you are using it to create something new or to add something that wasn't in there before. The next one is consistency. You ensure that your visual elements, your UI elements, they are consistent across all platforms. That is, when people go to your mobile app and they see that plus icon, they know that it's to create something. They go to your web app, they see the plus icon, they know it serves exactly the same purpose. I said it in one of my previous videos that for you to do this, you need a design system. You need a design system, and you don't necessarily have to create one from scratch. You can always adopt an existing design system that you are allowed to adopt. Okay, there are public ones that I mentioned, like Ant Design, like Human Interface Guidelines by Apple. A lot of them. Just adopt one, modify it to fit your own brand guidelines, and you can just go ahead and use it. So it ensures that you have a consistent set of elements. You know, everything looks alike, they work together, so your users are not confused. They don't have cognitive overload. That is, every time they see your elements, they don't start thinking all over again. Oh, what is this for again? I don't remember the last time I clicked on this. What did it do? They don't have to keep doing that every time, because by the time you have a consistent set of elements, everything looks, you know, from the same source, then they will not have to think too much, or they won't even have to think at all when they're interacting with your product. The next one is feedback. It's very important to give users feedback. I can't stress this enough. When users perform an action, give them feedback. When they click a button, either you introduce a pressed state, like when you just click the button, show that they've clicked it, or while they are pressing it, show that they are pressing it right now. If you want to know how to prototype all this, you can check out my video, Prototype Triggers and Figma Interactions. You can just check it out, and you will see different ways on how to, you know, design it in a way that when you are pressing, as you are pressing, something happens. When you are done pressing, something happens. It's very good that you create some feedback mechanism. So every time your user does something, you let them know that they did something. If they sent a message, give them feedback. Message sent, use color, use text, use spacing, use all these elements or all these atoms together, so that it will communicate to the user. You're also signifying, you know, it's a signifier. We're talking about everything at the same time. So you are signifying to the user that something has been done, and the user will also get it, that okay, That means every time that I do this thing, I should expect a feedback from the system. Essentially, you just need to provide feedback to confirm user actions. And don't forget that the feedback doesn't have to be visual alone. You can provide sound feedback. Let's say you sent money. I think I explained it in one of my previous videos, like GTB mobile app. When you send money, it's not just the receipt you see. You hear a sound too, and the sound is different from when you receive money. When you hear that sound, you know that definitely this transaction was successful. So you can provide visual feedback, you can provide auditory feedback, even tactile feedback. When your phone vibrates, it's some feedback, you know. The next one is relevance or contextual relevance. It's basically saying that you should make sure that your signifiers are relevant to the particular context. If there's an error, make sure that what you are displaying is relevant to that error. Just make sure that you don't just copy and paste your signifiers all around the platform. You make sure that they are relevant to what you are doing right now, relevant to the user actions, relevant to the type of attention that you want to grab from the user. Don't forget, grabbing attention from the user is also very important. So you just display things, you give them feedback, like I said earlier, but just make sure that the feedback is relevant, the signifier is relevant. There's no need making something look clickable when it's actually not clickable. So if something, you want to do a badge and it's accidentally looking like a button, you know that you need to change it, because people are going to be tempted to click on it. And in that instance, it's not relevant, because you don't even need something clickable there. You are just displaying information and they don't need to interact with it. Do you understand? So make sure that your signifiers are relevant to the context. If you don't want them to interact with it, don't make them be tempted. Don't invite them to interact with it. The last but not the least is accessibility. Actually, is like the most important, because you remember that I said earlier that you are designing for different types of people, and affordance is relative because it's a relationship between the user and the properties of that object. So if a user is unable to relate with the properties of the object, then the affordance is not there at that moment. If you cannot relate, if a user has visual impairment, they may not be able to relate with text on an iPad, because right now they don't have the ability to interact with it. You need to design and have it at the back of your mind that different users are going to interact with the product. So you provide different options. People with visual impairments, hearing impairments, different people that are differently able. So you need to make sure that you have options for them to, if there is text on your screen, you can make this thing available, what's it called? Something that reads out the text on your screen, like something that reads it aloud. I've forgotten what the name is, but you just provide alternative ways for users, different users, to connect with your product. You don't just assume that it's only able-bodied people that can connect with your product. Minority groups are not left out. So that brings us to the end of this video. I know it's short, right? But then I believe that the essential information has been passed. And at the end of this video, I've been able to talk about differences between affordances and signifiers. And I'm sure that you've learned a lot. I've explained the relationship between them, and I've explained practical applications of signifiers. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share to your friends, especially those in UX design. If you do not understand it right now, you can just watch it over again. If you have questions or comments, anything you want to let me know, just put it in the comment section. And if you do not want to, you can just send me a direct email by clicking on my profile. If you have not subscribed, please do. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And yeah, I think that's it. So bye guys. I'll see you in the next one.